the voice of sim racing.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to those of you watching on iRacing Live, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. I am James Pike, joined tonight in the booth by my colleague Ryan Macklin, and down in our virtual production trailer by Cisco Scaramuza as we come to you from the insanely fast Michigan International Speedway in the Irish Hills in Brooklyn, Michigan. Macklin, it's a fast track. It feels a little bit flat for being this fast of a racetrack, but it's wide. You can make a lot of moves. We saw it on Sunday when Larson went 4 wide to go get the race win. And oh, by the way, fuel mileage can be a thing too. And we saw that here when we paid a visit to this place for the first time this season in June.
Yeah, Michigan is always one of those tracks where you can expect fuel mileage races to come into play, and like you mentioned, it happened the last time we were here. There's a pretty good chance that we're going to see some more fuel mileage racing going on here tonight. And you also mentioned the speed, and I was watching Brandon Bowie, who is on the provisional pole right now, and when he took the green flag and he sailed off into turn 1, he was hitting 207 miles an hour, actually almost 208 miles an hour when he sailed off into the corner. Then he had to slow it down to about 180 miles an hour, and then he's back in the throttle, and as he goes down the back straightaway, he picks up that speed again and gets back up to 205 miles an hour. They're going to be doing this all night long, and it's going to be intense because when they get ready to go racing, they're not going to be out there by themselves. They're going to have about 30 other cars around them that they're going to have to maneuver through if they want to get to the front and ultimately go to victory lane.
But you have the room in most places on this racetrack, save for the exit of turn 2, which I more often than not equate to kind of falling off a cliff. The banking really falls away from you there, almost sort of reverse tilts in a way. And you end up kind of having everything banked towards the inside for a split second, or at least that's the sense I get every time I drive this place. And it ends up bunching up people, and we saw that happen in the June race as well. A big incident involving, I believe, Daniel Everhart and a few other drivers where they all came together there just trying to get up to the wall, follow the racing line, and it all kind of came together, which seems a little bit weird for this place, but, truck points are truck points, and that can happen every once in a while.
Well, and that's what we're going to have to wait and see if it happens again here tonight. And the difference between now and versus when we came here just a couple of months ago is we are down to just a couple of races before the playoffs do actually kick off. And you saw on your screen just a couple of moments ago, the points were actually up on the screen. There's several drivers that are trying to fight their way into the playoffs right now based on points. Lionel Callisto is the closest one right now. He sits 11 points outside of the cutoff spot right now. He needs a solid run here tonight, as well as Austin Coop, who sits 45 back. He's a little bit too far out where I don't necessarily think he can get in on points. He's probably going to need a win, but he's still close enough to where if a couple of those guys that are inside the playoffs have a bad night, he could capitalize and still be able to gain some pretty good points. This is going to be a very interesting race to see what kind of strategies those drivers on the outside looking in decide to go with. And one driver I think we need to keep our eyes on here tonight, he sits on the outside front row provisionally right now. That's Anthony DeBarro. He does not have a win, so he's not in the playoffs. He's actually 20th in the points right now, James. But if he were to come out here and win tonight, that completely changes the complexion of the playoff grid.
And that's the worry here. You look at guys like Coop who, sit 45 points behind Ross Cato in the 15th spot in the points as it stands is Cato. And you almost wonder if you've got any choice but to try and go for the win. And especially if you're DeBarro, 79 points out. That's 2 races worth of points in effect with only 4 races to go before we begin the playoffs at Chicagoland in September. So I think for these guys, we've almost passed the point of just trying to point your way in. I think you almost have to go for it if you want any sort of shot at being one of the 16 drivers that gets to compete for the Full Throttle Cup.
Yeah, if you're Anthony DeBarro, I think that's your only hope, being 79 points out, like you mentioned. I also believe if you're Austin Coupe or Nelson Rivera, that's also a situation that you probably need to start thinking about. If you're Ross Cato, I also think you need to be thinking about going for a win because, like you mentioned, he's on the cutoff spot right now. He's 16th in the points. If one of these drivers on the outside wins a race here tonight or over the next couple of weeks, he's going to be on the outside looking in. So he needs to start focusing on either getting ahead of the guys that are ahead of him in points, which Shane Ewing is only 4 points ahead of him, or he needs to go out there and take a chance and try to go for the win.
Yeah, the guys on the outside. That's a scary thought. And incidentally, we've got one pretty close to the front of our starting grid, which we'll go ahead and take you through at this time. Brandon Bowie was able to hang on for the pole in this race, so he'll start P1. And Anthony DeBarro is the man outside of the playoff picture at the moment, but he starts on the outside of the front row. Will begin tonight from second. Carl Shedd got the victory here in June and will start from the 3rd position. And then Adam Benefiel, who had the win at Vegas, is trying to race his way back into the top 30 in points so he can qualify for the playoffs. We'll start from 4th. David Comstock won last week at Watkins Glen, begins tonight from 5th. Dylan Jones will begin from the 6th position this evening. Colson Bermudez, who went back-to-back a few weeks ago at Indianapolis and Pocono to collect his first 2 wins of the season, starts 7th. Nelson Rivera will begin tonight from the 8th position. Daniel Eberhardt, who we talked about in pre-race a little bit, starts from 9th. And then David Washington, who has, along with David Comstock, 4 wins, more than anybody else in the series this season. He'll begin tonight from 10th.
Corey Wolf will start in the 11th position here tonight, and to his outside, the guy that won back at Daytona, Trevor Rapallo, starts P12. Then we have Sean Casto holding on to one of those playoff spots here. He starts 13th, followed by Shane Ewing in 14th. Then we have Austin Coupe sitting in 15th here tonight. Sean Boundy will start in the 16th position, and then we have the Wiley veteran Dwayne Vincent starting in 17th. Lionel Kalisto, 11 points on the outside right now. He's in 18th. Christopher Hurlow starts 19th, and Doug Roth will start 20th.
Scott Walter will roll off from the 21st position tonight, and then it's Joseph LaPlaca who starts from 22nd. John Abbott will begin from 23rd. Ross Cato, we talked about him in pre-race. He'll start 24th. Andrew Freenars won at Talladega and a few other places this season, will begin 25th. Braden Whitaker will start today from the 26th position. Nick Silver will roll off from 27th. Then 28th is where you'll find Randy Yoakum on the grid. 3 cars did not take time, so they'll start at the rear of the field in 29th, 30th, and 31st. Tanner Tallarico, Mitch Rollo, and Douglas Wyatt will complete your field for tonight's race at Michigan International Speedway, which will go for 100 laps and will go for 200 miles here at the fastest track in NASCAR. 18 degrees of banking in the corners, 12 on the front stretch, 5 degrees on the back straightaway to get you all set up for a very fast, a very quick race here, Mr. Macklin.
100 laps is going to be a very quick race. I expect a lot of green flag racing, and like you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, I expect that we will see fuel mileage come into play before this thing is all said and done. A fuel window is right about 40 to 45 laps, so if they get a quick caution, say 10 laps into this race, it could definitely become a fuel mileage race.
It could be a fuel mileage race on LSRTV tonight, and it could be an old-fashioned finish at the end where everybody just kind of dukes it out like we saw on Sunday. We'll see which way it goes, but we're happy to have you along as we get the green flag, and we're underway at Michigan, and Brandon Bowie got a really strong start there. Jumps ahead by about 3 or 4 car lengths, and it looks like Dylan Jones might have spun the tires because he stacked up everybody on the outside line. And by the time they get to turn 1, I believe he's already back to the 5th position, just in front of Daniel Eberhardt as they come through turn 2 for the first time.
And Anthony DeBarro did not get going on that start. He lost 7 positions before they even got to turn 1. Now he fights to the inside as they head off into turn 3. He's battling with the 7 of Nelson Rivera, trying to start working his way back to the front already. He's able to clear Nelson Rivera and now sets his sights on Daniel Eberhardt, but he's got a long ways to go here as they complete lap 1. It looks like Anthony DeBarro is going to go from 2nd on the initial start of this race all the way back to 7th in just a single lap. So not what he needed at all to kick off this race, but he's got plenty of time to make it back up. Meanwhile, back at the front, it looks like it is all Brandon Bowie right now as he's already pulled out to about a 3-car length advantage over Carl Shed off turn 2.
Bowie and then Shed coming up, heading the field in the Fords. Comstock in 3rd, trying to hold off Colson Bermudez, who is subsequently under fire from Dylan Jones, and then they're still kind of pack racing from there on, so we'll see how that shakes out. But I have a feeling Bermudez and Comstock might be the best battle here because you're already seeing Comstock go all the way down to the bottom of the track to block Bermudez, so looks like that 14 might have a little bit of speed here.
The 14 has been fast at these 1.5 and 2 mile tracks over the last couple of weeks. If you remember back, he won 2 weeks in a row at Indy and Pocono, a couple of really big tracks like this one here. He had some issues last week at Watkins Glen, but he's back with a really fast race car here tonight at Michigan. He's already moved up from that 7th position all the way up to 4th, as you mentioned, and he has set his sights on David Comstock, who was last week's winner at Watkins Glen, trying to run him down, but he's got a challenger from behind us. Here comes Daniel Eberhardt with a really strong run off turn 4. He looks to the inside of Colson Bermudez, and they're side by side as they head to 1.
Bermudez won't even challenge. He'll just let Eberhardt go into turn 1. So Eberhardt now up a position, put him in the 4th spot. And then I was looking at this pack right here from Adam Benefiel on. Really, really tight racing. You've got Nelson Rivera there. Dylan Jones has fallen back there. Trevor Rapallo's right there. Corey Wolf is right there. And they've all really stayed scrunched together. And while everybody at the front of the field, for the most part, has escaped. And, oh, by the way, don't forget Anthony DeBarro and David Washington heading up this group. But everybody beyond that seems like they've kind of jumped ahead just a little bit. But it's right there that you find the center of the storm at the moment. A lot of guys really, really bunched up together fighting for position.
And this is the opportunity for a lot of these drivers to go ahead and make those moves. The fresh tires is when you can make moves the best here at Michigan. Once the tires wear out and everybody kind of gets spread out, it makes it a lot harder for you to make passes, especially considering if you go to the inside like we see Washington trying to do on DeBarro now as they head to 3. You just don't have the grip down there that you would necessarily need to be able to carry that speed through the center of the corner and get off the corner ahead of the guy that you're battling. So right now in these first couple of laps on the start here is when these drivers need to go after it and really try to be aggressive, trying to make up as many positions as they can, because the longer this run gets, it's going to become more difficult, and we're going to see that throughout the night here. These guys are going to get really spread out, and passing is going to become very difficult for them the longer the runs go.
Especially as the tires wear off, because you can really see the fall off in speed at Michigan. You'll lose about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds if you complete a full green flag run in your lap times just off of tire wear alone. It's not necessarily a setup thing, so brace yourself and be ready for things to happen with your tires as long as you can manage them over the course of a green flag run. In the meantime, though, Colson Bermudez starting to slide back a little bit. We thought he had some speed in the beginning. That might have been very, very short-lived speed right off the restart, because he's finding his way backwards a little bit, though he got around Anthony DeBarro there, but I think that just goes back to the point that I was making, is DeBarro somehow found a way in between Bermudez and David Washington. I have no idea how he didn't come across the nose of that gate there, but stuck it in and found a spot in front of Washington and was able to hang on, so that will put DeBarro back to the 6th position. But they're still just racing really hard back there. They haven't found a way to separate themselves yet, Brian.
What you're seeing out of Anthony DeBarro is a driver in desperation. He knows he's running out of time to win a race and make it into the playoffs with a win. He cannot get in on points, or it's going to be extremely difficult being 79 points out coming into tonight. He knows that his only and best chance is to go up there and win the race. And in order to do that, he has to be aggressive, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. That move he made a lap ago where he sliced his way between Washington and Colson Bermudez, that was him just knowing that he has to go for it. And now he's side by side with Colson Bermudez once again, and he's going to take that 5th position back away from Colson. That sends him up to the outside line and leaves him battling now with David Washington as they come off 4.
So now they fan out. Now they go side by side, and DeBarro's here, Washington's here, and Adam Benefield might be in play as well to get around Bermudez, who really looks like he's struggling for speed at the moment. So he'll drop a few more spots, go back to the 7th spot. Nelson Rivera now there on the left rear quarter panel of Bermudez will try and go grab what I believe would be the 8th spot away from the 14 machine if he can make it happen and nab a place from that Aegis Motorsports driver. Up in front of this, though, everybody for the most part is just kind of gone. It's Bowie who's out in front by 2 seconds, and then you've got the trio of Shed, Comstock, and Everhart who haven't really separated from each other, but they are out in front of this next group, which Tabarro heads to the tune of about 0.7 of a second, so they're already making hay on the back half of the top 10.
And Adam Benefield also is making hay right here as he just made the pass on David Washington going through turns 1 and 2. He got a really good run. Now Washington looks back to the inside. I don't think he's quite going to have the run. He's not. So Adam Benefield is going to hold on to that position, and he will now move up into that 6th position. And this is another driver that has to be a little mindful of his situation. He has a win. He won back at the beginning of the season. He now has to get into the top 30 in points. He's only ran a couple of races this year, and as a result of that fell outside. Now with just a handful of races remaining, he has to get some good points to make sure that he gets back into the top 30 in points, and then he too will hold a playoff spot. And we are under caution here for the first time at Michigan. Not sure what happened. Actually, I just found it. Douglas Wyatt is around on the front stretch, and it looks like he actually got caught up with another car that looks like the one car of Tanner Tallarico. They both got involved in an accident on the front stretch here on lap number 10.
Couldn't quite tell what happened with Wyatt, and it almost looks like Tallarico checked up or got a little bit of help from Ross Cato there, and just got bumped ever so slightly out of the way, and it was enough to move him and send him spinning around and down into the grass, then back up onto the racetrack here. And after he got up there, it just ended up being a really, really sticky situation. And then Wyatt had absolutely nowhere to go. That's what happened. He came in behind and just nailed Tallarico. So 2 nights for the most part ending. And probably won't see much out of either of those drivers with the damage that they've got. Wyatt, especially the front end of that car, is completely torn up. So those nights over for the most part, and everybody here probably coming to pit road, I would think, for 4 tires and fuel, Brian.
Yeah, as bad as the tires fall off here, you're not going to see any drivers taking any chances. Just in that run alone, these guys had fallen off almost a full second from what they ran in practice and what they were running at the beginning of the run. Their fastest laps were 37 6s and 7s, and right as that caution came out, they were running 38 4s. So no chance here on 2 tires. I think it's going to be 4 tires and fuel for everybody down here on pit road, and Brandon Bowie is going to be the one to bring them to pit road. And now we just wait to see what's going to happen. One thing none of these drivers can have are issues on pit road, and that's something we saw several times last week at Watkins Glen, specifically with Dylan Jones. He slid through his box on one of his pit stops, and it ultimately, in my opinion, cost him the win last week at Watkins Glen.
Finished runner-up to David Comstock after ceding the lead because he undershot his pit. And I think you're right. I think had he been able to nail that pit stop, we probably would be talking about Dylan Jones, who won the race at Watkins Glen. But there's some strategy, I think, for you. A little bit of a change of things. Sean Casto goes for 2 tires and comes out of pit road first, trying to see if anybody else might have tried to do the same. Looks like for the most part, though, everybody else decided to get 4 tires. But Sean Casto, I believe, will assume control of the race lead when we get back to green.
And that's indeed what it appears to be, and I have to say I'm very surprised with this call. I don't think this is going to work out too well for him. The tires fall off so badly here, and I just don't think that he's going to have enough grip to be able to hang on. I mean, if he can stay above 14th, it would be a net gain for him. That's where he was running prior to the caution, so if he can just hang on and not fall that far back, it'll work out okay for him, but I think he's going to need a pretty quick caution if he wants this to actually work for the long haul here tonight. I don't see this ending too well for him.
Well, you got to take a chance, and I think if you're Casto, you're in a pretty good position as far as the points go. You've got room to kind of play around with things. You're still clear of everybody and should, I think, be able to point your way in so long as nothing crazy happens. And you don't end up into too much trouble over the next 4 weeks. So why not try and put yourself in a position to win? You've got the room to do it. Go for it. And even if it doesn't work out, you learn something for later on in this race. So when it really gets down to crunch time, you know exactly how to make things happen.
Well, and that's definitely something to think about here. If it works out well for Sean Casto on this restart, this is something that's not only going to benefit him for later in the race, but it's also going to benefit some of these other drivers, because everybody in this race is going to be paying attention to what happens to that 52 on this restart. They want to know how well it's going to work out, or if it's not going to work out. And that's going to be a deciding factor in the strategies we see later in this race. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. But getting ready to shape up for this restart, we'll run through the top 10 real quickly. Sean Casto will be your race leader. Then we have Brandon Bowie starting to his outside in second. He's been leading this race up to that point. Now we have Carl Shedd in third. David Comstock is in fourth. Daniel Everhart will restart fifth. Then we have Anthony DeBarro in sixth. Adam Benefiel is seventh. David Washington is eighth. Trevor Rapallo is ninth. And Dylan Jones sits out at the back end of this thing. He's restarting in the 10th position.
Aegis and PowerTech well represented in the top 10. You've got Washington, Rapallo, Jones, Everhart from the PowerTech stable, which we know is closely associated with those guys. So, and oh, by the way, the race winner for June, Carl Shedd. So pretty well populated up there. Not in that group, though, the leader, Sean Casto, who gets away pretty nicely here on the restart. The first one of the night on lap 15. Gets away by about a car length and a half to 2, and then Carl Shedd was able to jump right along with him. He may well clear Brandon Bowie by the time we get to I thought he might. It's going to be close. Out of turn 2. He tried it, but he won't. Bowie's going to be able to stay to his outside.
Side by side down the back straightaway, and this is what Sean Casto wanted to see. Them being side by side is going to allow him to stay out front for a little while longer, but now Carl Shedd slides into turn 3. He's able to get clear of Brandon Bowie and pulls up in front of him as they come off turn 4, and now he will set his sights on Casto. But now here comes Bowie looking back to the outside, and he's got to look to the inside too, because here comes Everhart as well. They're trying to make it a big battle for the lead, and here comes David Comstock back there too. You can't leave him out of the mix. And how about Adam Benefiel? So all these guys all over the place, and now here comes Bowie to the inside of Carl Shedd down the backstretch.
I'm impressed that you were able to keep up with all of that, because I was having a hard time trying to keep up with all that. Such a hard time that I started slurring words. But Bowie to the inside now of Shedd to try and get second. Everhart going to see if he can follow in behind the 44 to get third, and maybe Benefiel to get fourth if he can get a good enough run, but I think Benefiel's just trying to block and make sure that he doesn't have any company. And now Bowie's starting to try and find a way around Casto, who may start paying for that two-tire decision here in just a little bit. It doesn't look like he's getting through the corner quite as well as the other drivers here in the top 10. Bowie goes up to top, now looks underneath. A little mini block there from Casto, and then Bowie throws the bumper to keep Carl Shedd from getting around. So it's all very interesting at the front of the field.
Casto's fighting back on the outside line. He carried a little bit of speed through the middle of the corner, and now they're 3 wide, almost 3 wide as they come off turn 4. Looked like Carl Shedd was going to have the run, but he wasn't able to get there. Bowie leads at the stripe, but Casto still fights back on the outside. He's going to have to carry some speed down here into 1 if he wants to make it work. And they stay side by side, but it looks like Bowie's finally going to get the advantage, and indeed he will. He'll clear Sean Casto for the lead. Now he has to fight off Carl Shedd for second. I have to admit, James, I'm very impressed with how well that 52 has held on. Granted, some of that has been because of the side-by-side racing that was going on behind him, but he's still doing a lot better on these 2 tires than I expected him to.
I think the key for him is you just have to stay high and keep the car rolling and keep the momentum going. That's the best way to make tires work like that, as Daniel Everhart sweeps down to the apron to try and get underneath Casto. Does a really nice job of getting that 90 car down there to the white line and underneath the 52 machine. So a big run from Everhart should give him the chance to clear Casto and move the 52 back a position. Everhart now up to second, and it's Carl Shedd who will work on the 52 at the moment.
I really think the longer this run goes, the harder it's going to become for Sean Castro to hang on. As now he's going to lose a couple of positions. He lost the position to Carl Shedd, now to Dave Washington, and it looks like he's got more company coming from behind as Colson Bermudez and Dylan Jones are hot on his heels as well. You're starting to see those two tires fade, but the one thing I was really impressed with was how Daniel Eberhardt was able to slice his way up through there on the restart. He almost looked like Kyle Larson in a way, the way he came up through everybody on that restart, moving up from 5th to 2nd. Just, I think, maybe 3 corners or so, doing a really impressive job the way he did. And now he's in a position where he can try to chase down Brandon Bowie and try to take that lead away from him. He's already got a win. He's in the playoffs. Now is just an opportunity to try to get another one to add to his bonus points once the playoffs started.
But you have to go get Brandon Bowie at this point, who still is in control of this race. And we'll remind you that Bowie is yet to tally a victory in the 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series. So, you know, he'd love to make something happen. And he's had some speed at points in this season of action. Just hasn't been around at the end of races and hasn't had the speed at the end of races. I don't necessarily think it's been a matter of putting all the puzzle pieces together. The speed's been there at points. It just hasn't held all the way through. But Bowie looks like he's got a really strong piece tonight, maybe the strongest he's had all season, because he's got a car that can stay up front. And that's been one thing that we haven't seen too much from him. He's been able to lead at points, but hasn't been consistently up front through a good chunk of the race. And so far, here we are almost a quarter of the way home, and Bowie's been up front for virtually the entire period that we've been green.
Yeah, showing a lot of speed, but here comes Daniel Eberhardt, carrying a ton of momentum through 1 and 2, and he's right on the rear bumper of Brandon Bowie now as they go down the back straightaway. Does he have the momentum to get to his door? No, he does not, but he is right there, ready to pounce if he can get a good run through 3 and 4 this time by. He drops down to the middle groove of that racetrack, carries another really good run through the middle of the corner, and now is going to try to set him up down the front stretch to see if he can't get the run. But I think he got a little tight coming off the corner, as it looks like he had to check up just a hair, and that's going to allow Bowie to be able to hang on to that lead for just a little while longer. But now, for the first time tonight, Brandon Bowie is having to deal with somebody that's hot on his heels and is challenging him for the race lead. That's not something he's really had to deal with up to this point of the race, and he's definitely racing like that. You can see he's being a little bit on the defensive side right now, as here comes Eberhardt once again trying to challenge as they head to 3, just not quite close enough to stick his nose out there and get to his door.
He's defending at the moment, and you know Eberhardt wants this. He had speed in June before he got caught up in an accident off of turn 2 off an early restart. It was actually not too far away from this point in the race. I think it was about lap 30 or so in June when Eberhardt got clipped coming out of turn 2, turned into the fence, and tore his car up, and a few other cars too, as Eberhardt actually went rolling down the back straightaway upside down. So you know he'd like to redeem himself with a victory here and go get another victory after his really strong run through April when we went short track racing.
Yeah, and you have to also think about Brandon Bowie. As you mentioned, he has not got a win yet on this season, and while he's comfortably in the playoff position that he's in right now, you know he'd like to get a victory just to make sure that he's going to hold that position in the playoffs, so that he doesn't have to worry about it, and just to get a win. He's been out here all season long, and he's had fast cars every track or every week, and he just hasn't quite been able to put it together, whether it be because of getting caught up in a wreck or making mistakes of his own. Just hasn't quite been able to finish the deal. He's almost kind of been the Kyle Busch of this season. He's been fast everywhere we go, but he just hasn't been able to put it together. Still looking for that win. But this is the reason why he hasn't been able to do it, because he's got guys like Daniel Eberhardt that are all over his bumper, that are able to challenge him and make it very difficult for him to get the victory. And now as they come off turn 4, it looks like Bowie got a little high off the corner, and now here comes Eberhardt side by side for the lead as they go down the front stretch. Eberhardt's going to try to make the challenge. This is going to be a very interesting position, because if Bowie can pinch him down in the middle of 1 and 2, he might be able to hold him off. But it looks like Eberhardt's going to make the pass, and indeed he will. Eberhardt to the point on lap 26.
Daniel Eberhardt to the race lead, so he becomes the 3rd leader tonight, and then he got really loose off of turn 2, saved it, but he had to check up hard, and one car spinning off into the inside retaining wall here down the back straightaway, comes off it. It is Austin Coop who got turned on corner exit there. We'll have the replay up for you momentarily. Made contact with Nick Silver coming out of turn 2 and just got loose off of turn 2. Couldn't really do anything about it, and that was not what he needed for his playoff hopes. That's about the last thing that he needed to have happen for him, actually.
The one thing that I think he's got away with there is that he doesn't have any significant damage to that number 6 machine. I don't believe he made a little bit of contact with the inside wall, but not enough contact where I think it's really going to hurt that car. I think he's going to just have to come in and beat out the fenders a little bit, and he should be good to go. But the problem is now he is almost a full lap behind these drivers, or about a half a lap behind rather, and needs a caution if he wants to get back into this thing and have a chance to get that car fixed and get back up to speed and be able to make something out of this race.
That's the key. Points, points, points. If you know you can't get the win, like I don't think Austin Coop will be able to do now unless we somehow have everybody else in this field wrecked, which in theory could happen. Realistically, though, not plausible. Now it becomes a game for the 6th team of just trying to come out of here with as many points as you can. Meanwhile, Adam Benefiel making things happen here, trying to go grab what I believe would be the 4th, 5th spot, somewhere right in there. He's racing Carl Shed, coming behind David Washington, who goes up to block Shed a little bit. And now Benefiel and Shed are side by side, and behind them you have Dylan Jones and David Comstock coming back into this too, and Dwayne Vincent, who we haven't really talked about all that much, but started 17th, is now up at the 8th spot, so he's gained more positions than anybody in this field besides Washington at the moment. The Parker Store machine starting to make noise come towards the front.
Well, and Dwayne is a former winner here at Michigan in the Full Throttle Cup Series. He won back in June of 2013, so he certainly knows how to get around this racetrack, and you have to believe if he can get up there and be able to challenge these guys, he might be able to go after them and get another win here tonight, as Dylan Jones has an issue off turn 4. He was racing side by side with Carl Shed and somehow managed to keep that car going in the right direction, had to take it down to the bottom of the racetrack, and now is going to lose all of his track position as well. We'll get a replay on your screen in just a moment. A very scary moment for that number 11 machine, and for a lot of guys right behind him too. That could have been a much bigger accident than it ended up being. A very lucky break for everybody involved in that, but now that kind of spread things out just a little bit, because these guys that were immediately behind them had to get out of the gas, and they lost a little bit of ground. David Comstock and Dwayne Vincent are about 5 car lengths off of Carl Shed now, having to work their way back up there and try to get back closer to the front.
2 words for you on that whole deal, Mr. Macklin. Arrow loose. Absolutely was a classic case of that, which we see a lot here on corner exit at Michigan, because you're not turning all that much, but with the speeds these guys are traveling at, it's very easy to take air off of the rear spoilers of these cars and send people around. And it's not that Carl Shed, got into Dylan Jones or did anything in particular. It was just the presence of that 45 and that car being there on the outside that took the air off of Dylan Jones's rear spoiler there and got the 11 car loose and nearly turned into the inside retaining wall next to pit road.
Yeah, that could have been a really big moment for Dylan Jones, and just absolutely incredible driving on his part to make sure he was able to keep that car, number 1, from going down pit road, and number 2, from coming back up into the racing surface and potentially collecting multiple other cars. Did a really good job, and was definitely some heads-up driving on his part. But meanwhile, back at the front, we have a little bit of a challenge for the lead going on, as here comes Adam Benefiel. He's right on the back bumper of Daniel Eberhardt. He got around Brandon Bowie, and he has set his sights on this race lead. He's got 1 win on the season. He wants to get another one here tonight at Michigan.
Benefiel got checked up behind DeBar on the initial start and dropped back towards the back half of the top 10. He qualified 4th. So he's got speed in that car, and ever since he's been working his way back towards the front of the field, trying to find his way to the race lead, and clearly now has a really, really fast piece. He gets around Daniel Eberhardt, and Adam Benefiel will go to the race lead for the first time tonight as they come out of turn 2.
Very impressive drive by the number 83 machine. He's worked his way all the way to the lead now on lap number 33, and he's going to try to drive away from these drivers. But how about David Washington, as he is starting to work his way up through this field as well? He's right on the back bumper of Brandon Bowie. Started back in that 10th position and has had to take his time getting up through the field, but now he looks to the inside of Bowie as they go down the front stretch, and he looks like he's going to be able to take that position away. I believe Bowie is going to go ahead and just let him have it, and indeed he does. was, and that's going to move David Washington now up into the 3rd position. So the longer this run goes, the more you're starting to see the guys that are able to manage their tires, they're starting to rise to the occasion. And it's no surprise to me that we have the drivers at the front that we do. Adam Benefield, Daniel Eberhardt, David Washington, and then right behind these guys, another couple of drivers, James, that are really good at saving their tires. David Comstock and Dwayne Vincent. They're sitting back there. They're about a second and a half off the lead, but they too are on their way towards the front.
And just to keep you updated on the point situation here from Adam Benefield, because it is a requirement of the Full Throttle Cup Series that even if you do win a race, you must be in the top 30 in points after the race at Richmond here in a few weeks' time in order to qualify. Benefield currently sits 25 points out of 30th place. The guy who sits in 30th at the moment, Douglas Wyatt, ran into trouble earlier tonight, so you take that into account along with the fact that the only other driver tonight that is ahead of Benefield in points and in that sort of zone between him and 30th that's racing is Corey Wolf. And Benefield, especially if he wins, may be able to jump right into the top 30 tonight, especially if he can get the victory, because he's already up, what, I believe, 16 spots, yes, on Corey Wolf. So you throw in the point bonus there, and I believe that would put him at plus 21 on the driver of the number 16 machine. So it would be close. I don't know if he would do it automatically, but Benefield would be right there if he can hold this finish and come home at the end of the night with a victory.
And he's definitely well on his way to doing what he needs to do. Have to update on the driver that took 2 tires back on that initial pit stop, Sean Casto. He's been to pit road, gotten 4 fresh tires, and he's back out there. He just pitted a handful of laps ago, and he is now marching his way back up to this field. He's trying to get his lap back right now. It's his 26th 1 lap down, but with the much faster tires, with the fresher tires, he is able to slice his way through these guys considerably faster than everybody that he's around right now. About a second a lap faster than these guys. It's going to benefit him right now, but when the rest of the drivers have to come to pit road here in about 10, 15 laps or so, it's going to come back to him. He's not really going to have that advantage, but definitely doing a good job right now, but he just unlapped himself, as a matter of fact, getting around Adam Benefield, and now we see David Washington starting to slip back a little bit, as it looks like Brandon Bowie managed to get around him. Actually, I think Bowie might have been on pit road as well.
Down for 4 tires and fuel here. Doug Roth is down on pit road. Yellow flag is out. Well, that changes things every once in a while, but right in the middle of a pit cycle, and it's Colson Bermudez who ends up in trouble here. Replay will come up for you momentarily, but man, this changes a lot of things, Brian.
Indeed it does. We're going to have to see how this all shapes up, but looking like he got a little bit of help from Nick Silver going off into the corner. They were trying to go 3 wide off into turn 1. Nick Silver, Colson Bermudez, and then Andrew Freenars was also involved in that, and it just didn't work out too well. It looks like Nick Silver just got into the back end of Colson Bermudez, kicked him around, and unfortunately both those cars sustained some damage as they both went up and hit the outside retaining wall. But now we have to focus on what happened here, because Brandon Bowie, while he will get the lucky dog, he was the first car scored 1 lap down. He's kind of in a little bit of a spot here, because everybody else is going to be ahead of him. He's going to lose all that track position that he had from starting on the pole.
But you got slightly fresher tires, if that's any consolation, but it won't be much. Yeah, if you came right down pit road just before the yellow, you end up in big trouble. The guys who really get away with this, I believe, are the guys who were on pit road at the moment of yellow, which I believe were Doug Roth, and I think Corey Wolf was the other one that I saw for certain that was on pit road at that time. If you came in before, if you were Dylan Jones, Brandon Bowie, you're paying for it here for sure. And if you stayed out, you just come down, you get 4 tires and fuel, and you end up not really losing or gaining anything. But yeah, a little help from Nick Silver, sends Colson Bermudez around, tears up the rear end of the 14 machine. So Bermudez back to the garage, and at least sitting for a while, maybe not necessarily done for the night. He's certainly got enough room to make things work for the most part, and probably could get back on track if he wanted. But Silver now, I think, has really bit the dust. A lot of front end damage on the 24 machine, and had a little bit of trouble earlier with Austin Coop and got away with it and was able to escape without any damage, but this time he wasn't so lucky, and that probably is the end of his night for the number 24.
While all that was going on, pit stops did happen, and it looks like Daniel Eberhardt was able to win the race off of pit road. No strategy calls here. Everybody took 4 tires and fuel, but Eberhardt had a faster pit stop, and they came out just about on top of each other, and it looks like Eberhardt was able to win that race off. Then you have Adam Benefield followed by David Washington. Dwayne Vincent and David Comstock be your top 5. Then Anthony DeBarro came out in 6th, followed by Christopher Herlo in 7th. So a pretty eventful round of pit stops right there. Everybody pretty much did the exact same thing, 4 tires and fuel. Of course, the run was that long to where there really wasn't any room for strategy. There wasn't going to be any 2-tire calls there, James. But now we look with about 60 laps to go. There's really, unless we get a caution within the next 10 laps or so, there's not really going to be any fuel mileage racing at all, because they're going to all have to come back down at least one more time.
But the when of that pit stop, I think, is the interesting thing that we have to note. We've seen some guys who have short pitted here and tried to make it work. Some guys who have run the race strategy and tried to make it work. So, especially if we go green for a while, that could make things a little bit interesting, even though we know everybody will have to come down pit road at least once. Well, we have a moment, though. We'll remind you that coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you tonight by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top-quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. I figure with Douglas Wyatt stuck on pit road after a really, really big incident early on in this race, Doug Roth and Dwayne Vincent will be carrying the banner for the HPS folks. Probably the most recognizable customers of Hippie's Paint Shop in this series, but there certainly are a lot of them, and I always enjoy seeing their works of art out here on the racetrack.
Yeah, Hippies does an incredible job with their paints, and I enjoy them, and certainly advise that people go to them if they want to get paint schemes, not just for these Cup cars, but for pretty much any of the cars here on iRacing. They do an incredible job, so definitely want to enthuse about that. Looks like Doug Roth has, at least for the moment, elected to be out here, like you mentioned, as the race leader, followed by Corey Wolf in the 2nd position. I have to believe they're going to come to pit road here before this is all said and done, unless they were on pit road right when that caution came out. I'm going to have to go back and look at that, because that very well could have been the case, and if that was the case, they'd be sitting here with a pretty good situation, and indeed it was. They were on pit road at the time of the caution, so they have essentially fresh tires and fuel, and are going to be restarting as your race leaders when we get going.
Let scoring and timing cycle through one more time here as some of the folks get the wave around to make things happen and get everybody kind of resorted back to where they need to be. But as we get the green flag, look at that. The 43 car will lead us to lap 43. Doug Roth will be the race leader. Then it will be Corey Wolf. So just as I said, the guys who were on pit road at the moment the yellow came out decided to stay out, take advantage of the track position, and why not? Perfect timing for them. Then you've got Eberhardt, Benefield, Washington, Vincent, Comstock, DeBarro, Chris Herlo up in the top 10 for the first time tonight, up 10 spots from his starting position of 19th. And then Carl Shedd, your winner from June, rounds out the top 10. Good past an interesting note here just a moment ago from our producer, Cisco Scaramuzza. The list of winners here at Michigan in the Full Throttle Cup Series, pretty impressive. David Washington could go back to back to back in this particular race at Michigan if he wins tonight. He won the August race here in 2015 and 2016. Landon Huffman has a win here at Michigan in the Full Throttle Cup Series, and if you're wondering, yes, that is the same Landon Huffman who will make his Truck Series debut on Wednesday night in real life at Bristol in the race there, so keep an eye out for the son of Goodies Dance veteran Robert Huffman. Same can be said here for Eric Brundage, who's got a win, Anthony DeBarro, who's got a win here, and Carl Shedd, obviously, who won in June. As we get back to green flag racing at Michigan, Roth leads them down and immediately jumps high to go block Corey Wolf, and Daniel Eberhardt looked like he got on it pretty quick because he's already underneath the driver of the number 16, and Benefield's right there too. They're getting down to it and wasting no time trying to clear Corey Wolf as they go through 1 and 2.
And as quickly as he got around Corey Wolf, now Eberhardt's going to set his sights on the race leader side by side for the lead as they head to turn 3, and he's bringing Adam Benefield in tow with him, as well as David Washington. All three of these guys are going to make quick work of Doug Roth and Corey Wolf, as it looks like Benefield and Eberhardt have all made their way around, and now Washington too will try to get around Doug Roth. He's side by side as they head to the stripe, and as you mentioned, he won the last 2 races here in August in 2015, 2016. He'd love to make it a three-peat in this fall race, or this late summer race rather, but he's got a couple of really fast cars in front of him now as he moves into that 3rd position.
Oh, trouble, turn 2, big wreck cars up hard into the outside retaining wall. Anthony, one of his teammates, yes, no, it is Anthony DeBarro indeed, who got caught up in that. He made contact with someone, I believe it was Christopher Hurlow in the 87 machine, who was the other car caught up in that wreck. DeBarro just went around. Hurlow got into him. I couldn't tell if DeBarro came down onto him or if Hurlow came up. It was pretty tight in the corner there. I think Hurlow might have tried to get into the gas a little bit too early and just got up into him, but they go up the hill, and I don't think anybody else got collected into that, but torn up race cars for both of those guys, and especially DeBarro, who's got a lot of front end damage, and another one of our contenders for the playoffs who needs a win but won't get it tonight. Too much damage for DeBarro to be a contender now, so and especially with the hit that he'll take in the points, I get the sense that this means that Anthony DeBarro will be racing almost exclusively for the win at Bristol and Darlington and Richmond.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Anthony DeBarro, but that's almost been the story of his season. He has just not had a season to be really excited about this year. Of course, he hasn't made all of the races either, but that doesn't change the fact that when he has been here, he's had his fair share of issues throughout the season. Only 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s in 14 races. So it just has not been his year so far this year. And unfortunately, as we head into the next 3 races, he's essentially got his back against the wall. As you mentioned, he's going to have to go out there and go after a victory if he wants to have any chance of making the playoffs. Points absolutely will not be an option for him after tonight. They might have been before this happened, but definitely off the table now.
Interesting split here with the pit strategy. Sean Kaz still leads them down from, I believe it was about the 12th or 13th position, and they brought a few folks with them. Brandon Bowie, Dylan Jones, I see Shane Ewing is there, Austin Coop, Sean Boundy, Lionel Callisto, and Randy Yoakum all come down for 4 tires and fuel. So I don't know if it will make that much of a difference, and you're still probably going to have to pit again, but who knows? It could be interesting to see how this plays out when we get towards the end of this race.
We'll just have to wait and see as we are getting close to the halfway point of this race. So a lot of racing left to be done. Daniel Eberhardt and Adam Benefield at the front of the field, and then of course David Washington. But how about Doug Roth getting lucky with that caution following the way it did, and now he sits up inside the top 5. He was running outside of the top 15 when that happened and caught a lucky break, and now he's up here racing with the big boys and has a chance to get a good run out of this.
He'll have a good run out of this if he can stay out there. Same can be said for Corey Wolf, who benefited from the break there in the pit cycle under that most recent yellow before this one. And speaking of breaks, we're going to take our first one of the evening, so we'll be right back on the other side. You are watching LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series from Michigan International Speedway. We get set here for a restart to come on lap 49 after an incident involving Anthony DeBarro and Christopher Hurlow in turn 2. Daniel Eberhardt, who has been up towards the front of the field all night, will be the race leader for this. And then Adam Benefiel, David Washington, Doug Roth, Corey Wolf, both of those last two stayed out and got on pit road at the right time when the yellow flag flew out to get up here. Dwayne Vincent, David Comstock, Carl Shedd, Andrew Freenars, and Trevor Rampolo. All your top 10 at the moment. Macklin, should we be expecting anything on this restart? And should we expect somebody to maybe try and start saving fuel just in case we get a long green flag run?
I think maybe some of the guys at the back that topped off on this caution, they could potentially try to make that happen. It's a long shot, but it's certainly something that those drivers could consider. For the guys up front, I don't think there's any chance for them to make it on to the end without pitting again. I think they're going to have to come back.
We'll see. Fuel mileage is something you always have to watch out for here. We've said it a lot. Green flag comes out again. Eberhardt goes, and boy, did David Washington have a really good restart that time. I think he'll be able to clear Benefiel and maybe get around Eberhardt here if he plays it right. He'll at least go to second. Benefiel back to third. Wolf in fourth. Dwayne Vincent got a really good jump, and now I think should be up to the fifth spot here when they come down the back straightaway. And then I think Corey Wolf got really loose. So now Dwayne Vincent could be up to fourth, and here comes Doug Roth and David Comstock underneath the 16.
And Corey Wolf is sitting on the outside line trying to defend that position. However, it's not working out too well for him as Vincent gets around. Now Doug Roth is trying to get around him. And here they come down the front straightaway. You've got the number 88 of Andrew Freenars on the bottom of the racetrack trying to make a move too. Not quite going to be able to get there, but now look at Comstock trying to make something happen as well as he's to the inside of Corey Wolf. He's trapped behind Doug Roth right now, but he's got a good run up off the corner that's going to allow him to stay side by side. But here comes Carl Shedd now, right behind Comstock. Is he going to make a move for 3 wide? He's not. But meanwhile, we have a battle for second as Adam Benefiel is charging on Daniel Eberhardt.
Anthony Daniel. It sounds all the same, and we know those two have raced each other pretty hard, so I don't blame you for that one. But look at this battle for second place as Washington now goes to the race lead. Benefiel tries to get underneath Eberhardt to go get the second position, side by side through 1 and 2. Boy, does Eberhardt pinch him down on corner exit. It might have just been enough to keep him in the second position for the moment, but for how long? Because Benefiel's got speed.
Benefiel has shown speed all night long, and when that long green flag run happened just a few laps ago, he was the guy that marched to the front and did so pretty easily once the tires really started to wear off. So if we get another long green flag run, I have to expect more of the same out of the number 83 machine. But right now it's all David Washington who's out front, and he's trying to pull away from his teammate Daniel Eberhardt and away from the rest of these guys. But how about Dwayne Vincent sitting back there in that fourth position, James? He's another one. He has not really had the season that he has looked for this year, just trying to get into the playoffs. Doesn't have a win, but he's in on points as it stands right now. But a good run here tonight would certainly solidify him as we get closer to the playoffs, to give him an opportunity to go up there and challenge for that championship. Just 5 top 5s for that number 13 machine so far this season. So certainly just has not been the year he was expecting to have.
You would think, and then you look at the point standings and you realize that Dwayne Vincent is 4th in points. Not that they matter in this point system, but it speaks to the consistency that he's had. Only David Washington, David Comstock, and Nick Silver, of all people, have been better. So you got some speed in Vincent, and you have the ability to stay in these races, which, it might not necessarily be as heralded as winning in this playoff format, but it can get you somewhere at times, and this feels like one of those races where it may really pay off for him. If he can find a little bit more speed, especially on a long green flag run, Vincent could be right there. And we also have to remember that he hasn't really been up near the front of the field up until this point. He's had to work from the middle of the field. He started 17th and has raced his way up to the 4th spot at the moment. So now that he's finally up here and he's got a little bit more room to work with, I wonder if we'll really start to see the 13 flex his muscle as we go through this run.
Well, and to your point, he has been running at the end of every single race so far this season. So in that respect, he's had a pretty good year. He's been able to keep that car on track and essentially keep it out of trouble. Just hasn't quite been able to get up there and challenge these guys for the wins the way he would like to, but definitely got to look at the run he's having here tonight as a statement, sitting up there inside the top 5. He's got a very fast-looking car here tonight, and if this thing stays green long enough, he's another one of those drivers that always seems to rise to the occasion on the long green flag runs, and I have to believe you're going to see that here tonight as well if we do get that long run, which we had earlier, and we saw him start to march his way up through the field and get closer to the front. Now he has the track position, and he is keeping pace with the guys in front of him, so a really good run for him. And how about Doug Roth, too? I just want to go back to him. He got lucky with the caution coming out the way it did. He didn't have the speed in practice, but he's showing some pretty good race speed right now. Staying up inside the top 5, despite not having that speed in practice or qualifying, he still sits in that 5th position, racing with guys that have wins this season, with David Comstock, Carl Shedd, Andrew Freenarge, and then, of course, the guys that are ahead of him as well.
So some speed there in the 13 machine. I'm also taking a look here at the battle for 5th because David Comstock has been all over the rear bumper of Doug Roth for the last 2 or 3 laps and just hasn't quite found a way around the 43, but he's going to try and find a spot underneath Roth as they come down the front straight. Doesn't quite have it yet, but I think he's coming. David Comstock looks to be just a little bit faster than Roth, and as they cross the stripe that last time by, Roth ran a 38.3, and David Comstock also ran a 38.3, but he was faster by 100th, and it was all he needed, I suppose, because he got underneath Roth there in 1 and 2. So move David Comstock up to the 5th position at this point.
And David Comstock marching his way back towards the front as well. He qualified in 5th, and he is back up to that 5th position. The problem is he's about a 1.5 seconds off the race leaders right now. And the draft, while it may not seem like it's that big of a deal, when you have a group of cars out in front the way these guys are right now, you almost need a little bit of drafting help in order to get back up there. And he does have a line of cars behind him, but it's going to be difficult for Comstock to be able to run these guys down, especially until the tires really do begin to wear out. He's just not going to have that speed because of the draft. It's kind of going to create a bubble between these guys that's going to make it very hard for him to get back up there. But we have a little bit of a battle starting to heat up for that 2nd position as Benefield has closed back in on the back bumper of Daniel Eberhardt, and it seems like once again, now that this run has started to extend a little bit, he's starting to rise to the occasion. But how about Dwayne Vincent? Again, he's right there behind these guys as well, and he seems to be closing that gap ever so slightly every single lap.
Yeah, Vincent's been able to claw his way up towards the rear bumper of Benefield, and he may well just be one of the fastest guys out there at the moment. We'll take a look that last time by to see what he ran and what the leaders ran. Everybody looked for the most part like they were in the 38s. It was a 38.5 for Washington, a 38.5 for Eberhardt, a 38.5 for Benefield, and a 38.4 for Dwayne Vincent. So indeed, he was a little bit faster. And while we have a moment here under green flag, let's go ahead and take a look at tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, since we've already crossed the halfway point of tonight's race, which is brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Cars Tour, USAC, VLN, Black Pond GT, and more. David Washington, currently your race leader as we work lap 61 out of Benefield in the 2nd spot at the moment. Daniel Eberhardt runs 3rd right now, and then Dwayne Vincent is in 4th. David Comstock has made it around Doug Roth to get 5th. Roth currently runs in 6th. Carl Shedd is up to 7th. Andrew Freenarge sits in the 8th spot. Trevor Rapallo begins his charge back up to the field. He runs in 9th, and then Brandon Bowie, your pole sitter, rounds out the top 10, currently running in 10th.
Corey Wolf has fallen back to the 11th position since having that lucky break under the caution, or when that caution came out. Nelson Rivera sits in the 12th position. Then we have Dylan Jones in 13th. Ross Cato is in 14th position. Then we have Shane Ewing sitting in 15th. Scott Walter is 16th. Randy Yoakum is 17th. Sean Boundy is 18th. Lionel Kalisto on the outside of the playoffs right now by just 11 points coming into tonight. He's running back in the 19th position. And then Sean Casto sits in the 20th position right now.
John Abbott runs in 21st, and then it's Austin Coop, last car on the lead lap, in 22nd. Braden Whitaker, 5 laps down, and the first car off the lead lap in 23rd. Joseph LaPlaca sits in 24th at the moment. Everybody else from here on out has run into some sort of trouble and is either running around very slowly, say on pit road, or out for the evening. Colson Bermudez got into the wall in turn 1. He's scored 25th. Chris Hurlow and Anthony DeBarro got into it out of turn 2. They are currently in 26th and 27th. Nick Silver runs in the 28th spot at the moment. 29th to Mitch Rollo. Center Tallarico and Douglas Wyatt out very early in this race. We're 30th and 31st as we mix up all sorts of laps here. And that concludes your iRacing Midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. That's iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. We'll go back to the race lead here because guess what? We've had a lead change. Adam Benefiel was able to get around David Washington, so the 83 car is now back up in front again. Washington's back to second, Eberhardt's in third, and Dwayne Vincent, who has slowly but steadily worked his way up towards the front of this field, is finally there with the lead group, working on the rear bumper of the number 90 car to try and get the third spot away.
Man, and while we were going through that midway race break, the battle for the lead was really heating up as Benefield was able to get to the door of David Washington, but Washington did not want to heed that lead for about 2 laps or so. They stayed side by side battling for that lead for quite a while, and then eventually the tires just made a difference for Adam Benefield, and he was able to get the lead, and now he's begun to open that gap up as he's put about 3 car lengths on David Washington and Daniel Eberhardt and Dwayne Vincent as well. He's starting to get away from these drivers, and again, that long run speed that number 83 machine has, it's really starting to sink in as Washington makes contact with the wall off turn 4. I don't think it was severe, but it was certainly enough to throw some sparks into the windshield of Daniel Eberhardt right behind him, but it doesn't appear to have really hurt that car a whole lot.
Oh, trouble again, front straightaway, 1 car hard into the outside wall and comes back down. I see Nelson Rivera spinning here in turn 1, and it is Dylan Jones who immediately called for the tow truck and put himself on pit road. The 11 machine into the wall hard here on the front straightaway to bring out the yellow flag. And I think, if I'm seeing this replay correctly, yes, Brandon Bowie just got a little bit closer than I think Bowie thought he was to Jones and just turned the 11 car into the outside retaining wall down the front straightaway. And Nelson Rivera spun. I don't think he picked up that much damage, but for Jones, that should be game over for him. A lot of damage to the front end of that 11 car.
Yeah, huge wreck for Dylan Jones and a lucky break for Nelson Rivera. He actually never hit a soul or anything. He just did a couple of 360s and spun that car down into the grass and then was able to keep going. So other than probably a new pair of boxers and some fresh tires, he's pretty much in good shape on that number 7 machine. But Dylan Jones, that was a weird accident between him and Brandon Bowie. It almost just looked like bump drafting gone wrong because it looked like Bowie was just trying to shove him down the straightaway a little bit, and he just got on that back bumper in an awkward position and it sent him around. I'm not really sure how that happened, but just one of those cases where you see just how out of control some of these cars can be, where they can actually have a little bit of contact like that and it can actually send them around.
It wasn't quite Casey Kane and Danica at Auto Club painful to watch there. It wasn't a very hard turn, and I think you're right. I think it was much more of a racing deal, much more of an accident. I don't think Bowie intended to do that, but the contact was so slight, and when you're moving at these speeds in excess of 200 miles an hour here at Michigan, it doesn't take much to send somebody around, and that's exactly what happened to Dylan Jones. So they'll come down to pit road here to work lap 68, 32 laps to go. So I think everybody here is either going to be close or good on fuel. It won't be by too much, but I think we'll see some folks who should end up okay out of this, and another yellow really should, I think, knock it in the park for everybody and put everybody into their fuel window range to make it to lap 100. So we'll see if anybody tries to pull any pit strategy here, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Benefiel already around to the left side of his car, has tires on, and he drives off and he drives away down towards turn 1.
And Benefiel easily wins that race off of pit road, and then it looks like it was David Washington to come out in second, followed by Eberhardt, and then Dwayne Vincent in fourth. And then David Comstock gets fifth. And hearing that the 10 of John Abbott has elected to stay on the racetrack for right now, actually, I'm actually being told wrong. It looks like it was a scoring error. Apologize for that. Adam Benefiel is your race leader after the exchange of pit stops right there, and will be the race leader when we go back green here. And this is the first time he's going to have control of the race, James. He's had a lot of long run speed, but now we really don't have that much of a long run left. We have about 32 laps. Looks like we'll probably have about 30 to go when we go back green. Not really going to have the time to give up the lead to try to manage his tires. He's pretty much going to have to be hard charging here from the end.
You would think. You would think. We'll see what happens when they go back green. But while we're under yellow, we'll remind you that coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. You can get yourself a basic download for free or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. Lights are still on here on the pace car as we work lap 69, so we'll at least be waiting until lap 71 until we get the restart. I have a feeling we'll probably end up getting it on 71. Benefiel, your leader. Washington in second. Eberhardt in third. Vincent in fourth. Comstock in fifth. Shed 6th, Ronth 7th, Frenars 8th, Bowie 9th, and Rapallo 10th. I think the top 6 did not change hands one bit in that exchange on pit road. Might have had a few movers towards the back half of the top 10, but everybody that was already up there stays up there, and I think I'll admit I'm most interested to see what Dwayne Vincent can do. Not only because he's the only guy up there that doesn't have a win yet this season, but he hasn't been as close to the leaders all night as he is right now. Here's his first really good chance to go try and hunt down P1.
Well, and he's going to be restarting on the outside line, which if he can get a good restart and get to turn 1 cleanly, it's going to be an advantage to him to be able to maybe try to squeeze Eberhardt down through the middle of 1 and 2 and get that third position away from him. And then he can go up there and try to challenge Washington and Benefiel for the race lead. He's definitely got the speed in that car here tonight, which is refreshing to see because while he's had speed at a lot of tracks, just hasn't been at the front of the field battling with these guys much at all this season. He's definitely got the opportunity to go up there and try to steal one from him tonight, but he's got his work cut out for him as we still have about 30 laps to go, and these guys are not going to lay over one bit to give him an opportunity at that win. If he's going to get up there and take it, he's going to have to work his tail off to get it.
It will indeed be 30 laps to go when we get the green flag here once again at Michigan. The other driver I think we need to at least give a nod to and a tip of the cap to, especially with the way he's played pit strategy tonight, is the 43 of Doug Roth, who was on pit road when we got the yellow earlier and was able to stay out and really hasn't fallen out of the top 10 since. Didn't qualify all that well, started in 20th, but he's been up here in the top 10 the whole time. So big run for the 43 tonight and a good run, and he's needed it.
Oh, absolutely. He's not really had a very impressive season either, and to be up here inside the top 10 the way he is, certainly got to feel good for that number 43 machine. Just trying to salvage and get a pretty good run here tonight. He's on the outside of the playoffs by quite a bit. A win's pretty much the only opportunity for him to get into the playoffs, and getting that lucky break and being able to get up here inside the top 10, if some chaos breaks out towards the end of this thing, he might have a chance to get a win.
He might have a chance, but we'll see, because there's still a lot of racing left to go. In 30 laps here at Michigan, you can see a lot of things happen. Green flag back out in the air. 30 laps to go at Michigan. Benefield leads them down to the stripe once again. Washington immediately down to the bottom. And did Dwayne Vincent get a pretty good restart? I'd say so. He's already clear of Daniel Everhart. Should keep it wound up on the outside. So Dwayne Vincent now to P3 at the big track of the Irish Hills.
Yeah, he got a really good restart, but also Everhart spun the tires on that restart just a hair, which is what allowed for Vincent to be able to get around him and get clear into that third position. Meanwhile, though, behind these guys, just a couple of cars, there's a battle going on between David Comstock and Carl Shedd. Comstock's on the bottom trying to take that position, and it looks like he's going to have it for the moment, but Carl Shedd's going to fight back here on the front stretch. He carries some good speed off the corner, and they stay side by side as they head to turn one. Looks like Shedd's going to have the advantage when they get to the corner. Can Comstock take it back as they work through turns 1 and 2? However, it does not look like that's going to be the case as they remain side by side as they come off the corner.
They'll stay side by side. I'm waiting for something to happen here at the front of the field because you've got Washington and Vincent and Benefield basically nose to tail as they come into turn 3. They've kind of strung themselves out single file for the most part, but it's close. It's very close. And even though you got some side-by-side action on back there with Shane Ewing and Corey Wolf back at about the 10th spot, it's these front guys up here that I think are really worth the watch. And here we go. David Washington underneath Adam Benefield for the race lead once more. Can he get up and complete the pass coming out of 2? Yes, he can. David Washington, your race leader.
David Washington back to the point, and that also allowed for Dwayne Vincent to close right in on the back bumper of Benefield. He had the opportunity to make that move for the second position. He decided against it, stays in line behind the 83 machine, but now the question has to become, how long can David Washington hold on to the race lead? We have seen all night long that Benefield has had the faster car the longer the runs go, and now they're side by side for second as Benefield went high and allowed Dwayne Vincent to get to his door, and Dwayne is going to move to second now as they get to turn 1. He's going to take that position away. He powers ahead of Adam Benefield, and now he's just one car away from the race lead as they come off turn 2.
A patient drive, a classic vintage Dwayne Vincent drive. The man from Lafayette, Louisiana, now up to the second position here after starting in 17th, up 15 spots from the drop of the green flag. And now we'll try and go after David Washington, who was able to gap those two just a little bit, so might be a few laps before he gets up there, but clearly Vincent's got a very strong piece. Just a little bit behind that, though, Carl Shedd is able to get around Daniel Everhart. So Shedd up to the 4th spot here as they go through 1 and 2. And then it's David Comstock, who sits in the 6th position, will now try and find his way around Everhart and go try and grab 5th.
And he's right on the back bumper of Everhart as they head to turn 3. He's got to be mindful of right behind them too, because Doug Roth is right there as well. And as they work through the corner, anything can happen here. And look at Doug Roth. He is really on a charge here tonight. Gets a good run up off the corner. Can he make a move on Comstock? I think he's close enough to do it. Now the question is, will he do it as they get to turn 1? He stays glued right to the back bumper of Comstock. He's not going to take that chance. Backs the corner up now and is going to try to get a good run through the middle of the corner to see if he can't get back to his back bumper off the corner. And now you see these guys kind of starting to spread out just a little bit. And we had a lead change, or I'm sorry, no we didn't. We have a change for second place now as Adam Benefield goes side by side with Dwayne Vincent as they head to 3.
Vincent got loose off of turn 2. That's what started that. Benefield just saw it happen right in front of him and said, okay, well, if you're going to lose momentum on the top, I'll go to the bottom and see if I can get alongside you. So that's exactly where he is. I think he may end up, well, a little bit tight at the stripe. And Vincent hung on there by 4 1/1000ths of a second that last time by to the second position, but I don't think he'll be able to hang on to it for too much longer. Benefield now underneath the 13 machine, and Adam Benefield now back up to second. I think for the most part, we can tell now that Benefield does not have a good car right off of the restarts, but as the tire pressures build up, give him about 5, 6, 7 laps, and that 83 car really is quick. So Benefield now past Vincent will try and go and chase after the 98 of David Washington for the lead once again.
But he's got his work cut out for him, as that is a full half a second that he has to make up now on David Washington if he wants to get back up there. Plenty of time to do it with still 23 laps left in this race, but that's going to be a pretty tough gap for him to make up, because Benefield while he is very fast on the long run, he has not really been this far behind at all during any of these runs. He's been right on the back bumper of the guys he's been chasing, just waiting for the tires to come in. Now he's got to close that gap in, and you have to wonder, is he going to drive that car a little bit harder trying to get there, which could indeed hurt his tires and make it harder for him to catch up to David Washington, and could ultimately cost him a shot at this. And actually, he lost some ground that time, James. He lost about a half a tenth to David Washington last time by. That's going to be a problem here if he doesn't start gaining ground soon.
And especially when you look and see who's behind him. Vincent hasn't left the rear bumper of the 83, and if anything, they've got more company, because here comes a battle for the 4th position. Daniel Eberhardt is back up there. He gets underneath Carl Shedd quickly and makes easy work of the 45 machine. So Eberhardt now up to 4th. He'll try and go after Vincent for 3rd.
And he actually got really tight coming off the corner, and now has to play defense to Carl Shedd because he got tight coming off the corner, lost some momentum. Carl had the opportunity to go after it. Eberhardt threw a slight block and was able to hold him off, but that did cost him some time on Dwayne Vincent. Now he's going to try to set his sights back on him, as he got a really good run through 1 and 2, and he's able to close that gap back down to about a car length off of that number 13 machine, getting ever so closer to the back bumper of him now, but still has his work cut out for him, as he's got about a half a car length still to make up if he's going to get there. And Carl Shedd's starting to slip back just a little bit. But how about the side-by-side battle going on just behind these guys between Andrew Freenars and Doug Roth? It's a battle for the 6th and 7th position right now going on with those two.
Big battle there for 6th and 2nd, as we saw way in the back of the field. Randy Yoakum got into the wall on turn 2 exit and came back down and nearly got a good piece of the inside retaining wall, but kept it going, so we stay under green. But I caught that out of the corner of my eye, so we'll pass that message on and pass on what happened to you folks watching here on LSR TV. But back at the front of the field, still Benefield, still Vincent, still Eberhardt trying to chase down Washington, and we have a bit of a gap that's established itself between David Comstock and Doug Roth to the tune of about 0.6 of a second there when they cross the stripe, I believe. Yes, I played a little guessing game, I'll admit, but it is about 0.6, and now Roth is under fire from Andrew Freenars in the 88. Who comes underneath Roth here and will try and go grab the 7th position away.
A very intense battle going on back here with Andrew Freenars, Doug Roth, and then, of course, Trevor Apollo, Shane Ewing. They're battling side by side for the back half of the top 10 right now. Really impressive battle, but the battle for the lead has really heated up as Benefield has closed that half a second gap down to nothing as they're side by side as they head to the strike. Benefield on the bottom, Washington on the top. He's trying to pinch him down the front straightaway, but Benefield was able to get there, and now he's going to slam that car to the bottom of the racetrack in 1 and 2. Carries really good speed through the middle of the corner, and it looks like he's going to clear David Washington for the race lead here on lap 83.
Well, how about that? 18 laps left here in this race at Michigan, and Adam Benefield showing that he may well just have the best car out of anyone in this field on a long green flag run. Can Washington pull anything back here as they come out of turn 4? We'll see if they get the run. I don't think so, no. Benefield goes down to the bottom to cover. Vincent actually goes up top to try and take away the outside from Washington, and that may mean that the 2nd position changes hands here. If Washington's not careful, they could go side by side for a little bit. In the meantime, though, yep, they'll still stay side by side. So there's your battle for 2nd. Vincent Washington. I was a little bit distracted by the battle here right behind Andrew Freenars in 7th, because back there it's Shane Ewing, Doug Roth, and Trevor Rapolo, who are all coming around making things happen. And hearing that one car got into the wall. Dwayne Vincent in trouble some way, somehow. Issues for the 13 machine here late in the going.
Yeah, him and David Washington were battling side by side going off into turn 3, and it looked like Washington got into the left side of Dwayne Vincent, sent him up the track. He almost made contact with the wall. He got just a couple of inches off that wall, but unfortunately it kicked him back from battling for that 2nd position all the way back to 6th. As now we have a wreck on the backstretch as Freenars is around. Looks like no caution, but Doug Roth was also involved. Andrew Freenars got kicked sideways coming off of turn 2 when he was battling with Freenars. And actually looking ahead, it looks like Freenars got a little loose coming off the corner and kicked himself around, and then Doug Roth got caught up in it as well. But no caution here. They're going to stay under green, but heavy damage for the number 88 machine.
Heavy damage for the 88 machine. He got loose. Shane Ewing didn't really have anywhere to go and just kind of finished off the 88 spin and sent them around. We stay under green. That will definitely hurt Freenars and Roth, who was having a great run after playing the pit strategy well. So good night spoiled for those two drivers and maybe Vincent as well. So a lot of things happening here late in this race. They've all kind of split themselves up now that we've had those two mini incidents here within the last 2 laps.
A lot of chaos going on in the closing stages of this race, and fortunately for some of these guys, the caution didn't come out, because I think if you're Adam Benefield, you don't want that caution to come out. You've got good long run speed, and you know that you really don't have the short run speed that some of these other guys do, specifically David Washington and Daniel Eberhardt. You don't want that caution to come out to put you in a position where you have to come in and get tires and then have to really be aggressive trying to hang on, knowing that you don't have that speed. But if you're Daniel Eberhardt and David Washington, you really wanted to see that caution so that you could have that opportunity to go up there and try to take this thing away from the 83 machine.
But you got to run it down first, and once we get 10-15 laps in this car, no question, Adam Benefield is the best car on the long run here. So if you're going to run him down, you have to show everyone something that we have not seen here in this race, and that is an ability to run down Adam Benefield in the middle to late stages of a green flag run. Eberhardt and Washington are the best poised to do it, just off of track position at the moment. The question, though, Mr. Macklin, is can they?
It's going to be very difficult for anybody to run down this 83 machine. He has shown all night long that he has the long run speed, and unless he makes a mistake in these final 12 laps of this race, I just don't think that anybody's going to be able to get there. And the longer this run goes, the bigger his gap back to second place becomes. He's gapped him out by 0.7 of a second, and he just continues to grow that gap every single lap that passes. So I think really at this point the only hope for Eberhardt or for Washington is to either catch a caution or for Benefield to make a mistake. Otherwise, I think this is Benefield's race to lose.
One would think. But now if you're Benefield, you just have to execute and make sure that you clear lap traffic easily, as he does with the 6 of Austin Coop. No problems getting around that car. And beyond that, it's a long, long way. Almost half a track till you get to the next car on track in front of Benefield, which is Sean Castro. So have a feeling that won't play into it at all. It's a clean racetrack from Benefield, and I think at this point we're just wondering whether or not we'll get a yellow flag here towards the end of this race. And a reminder that that 5 to go marker is the Pasoko point of no return, as our lead man here at LSRTV likes to dub it. But that is the point from which we will not restart this race under green if we get a yellow flag. So watch lap 95.6 on. If we get there and make it there under green flag and have a yellow within that range, the race is over. And if it stands the way it does now, Adam Benefield comes away with his second victory of 2017.
Yeah, and a very fast car. He's now opened that gap up to just under a full second over these guys right now. And to your point, this would be his second victory of the season. You have to go all the way back to Las Vegas back in March, which is the last time that he went to victory lane. Now that sounds like a long time ago, but for Adam Benefield, that's only a handful of races back for him, because he hasn't been here for much of the season. He's missed most of the summer stretch and just came back here recently to get involved in this. So another win would certainly carry some momentum and also help his chances at getting into the playoffs based on points, because he's got to get into the top 30 before he can actually carry either of these victories as a win towards the playoffs. He sits 36th in points coming into tonight, but he's certainly going to make that case to get back into the top 30 if he can get the win here.
It was a calculated strategy from the beginning of the season for Adam Benefield. We talked to him a little bit earlier on, and he said that he just wanted to take a lot of time to be with his children and his wife and his family this season, but race when he can, when he could, and enjoy it when he could, and really try and hammer down in the fall and go after the Full Throttle Cup once he qualified for the playoffs. So he knows he's been in the hole, at least on the points rule, for a little bit, but took that gamble on himself the same way Ryan Preece did to get the ride with Joe Gibbs Racing, and it paid off handsomely for Preece at Iowa a couple of weeks ago, and it looks like it may well pay off the same way for Benefiel, who could, by the end of the night, very well be right in the top 30 in points where he needs to be in order to qualify for the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, take away another spot from some of the drivers who have already been sweating it out trying to get their way in on points. He would be the 10th man if he can get back up there into the top 30 that would have a victory this season, which leaves only 6 spots for drivers who have not won a race to get into the playoffs on.
And you have to look at this number 83 team as a threat for the championship, because this is only his 5th race of the season. He has not been here for very much of the season at all, but if you look at the 5 races he's ran, he finished 2nd at Atlanta, he won at Las Vegas, finished 2nd at Indianapolis, and finished 3rd at Pocono, and now here he's running in 1st at Michigan with just about 5 laps to go. Looks like he's well on his way to his 2nd win of the season. I think if you're David Washington or Daniel Eberhard or any of these guys that have been at the top of the points for a while, I'd be looking at this number 83 car as a really big threat for the championship later into this season. Definitely got to pay attention and be ready to step your game up if you want to beat him.
A win would go a long, long way towards making that happen, but a little bit further back, we've got a battle for second. David Washington was able to clear Daniel Eberhard, so Washington now running in the 2nd position. And, oh, by the way, Dwayne Vincent's been able to stick up there in the top 5 since he had that little run-in with Washington a handful of laps ago. Currently sits in 5th, 1 spot behind Carl Shedd, and maybe 2 or 3 car lengths back to the rear bumper of the 45.
And he's trying to close that gap back down to see if he can get back up to where he was running before. As he's trying to close in on Carl Shedd, that would be the battle for 4th if he can get there. But the problem is he's still got a couple of car lengths to close that gap down. Was able to get back around David Comstock just a handful of laps ago to get back inside the top 5. And now is trying to run down Carl Shedd, showing that prowess that he has on long green flag runs as he's able to close back in on these guys. And now he's closed that gap down. He's right on the back bumper of Carl Shedd as they work through and actually out of turn 4. Now can he make the move with just 4 laps to go in this race?
4 laps to go for the leaders to come back to the stripe and finish it off. Benefield's out front by 2 seconds, and you've got the likes of Washington and Eberhard and Shedd and Vincent all right there. Comstock's actually worked his way back up towards the rear of that group that comprises most of the top 5. So if they get racy, he might be in for this. And it could be a fun little battle here for everybody from 2nd on back all the way to Comstock, who currently sits in 6th. And we're not done yet. We still have enough laps here that something interesting could happen, and it nearly did there with Comstock. He was very loose, almost sideways off of turn 4.
A very scary moment for that 42 car, and he's just trying to hang on so he can get up there and try to challenge a couple of these drivers for a top 5 position, sitting back in that 6th position right now. 3 laps to go on the racetrack, and the 4 in front of him are still trying to decide who's going to finish where, as you've got a pretty good battle beginning to heat up between David Washington and Daniel Eberhard, and then also between Carl Shedd and Dwayne Vincent as they get ready to come to 2 laps to go. It's all Adam Benefiel with a 2.2 second advantage, and that advantage just continues to grow as the laps tick off here as he continues to grow that gap on these guys.
2 laps to go, so we'll watch the battle here for 2nd through 5th. Not really much movement yet, though you see Shedd trying to find a way to block Vincent as they go through 1 and 2. They'll stay put where they are. Eberhard gets a decent run out of the 2nd corner, but don't think it's going to be enough to make anything happen here on this lap. Probably will need that last lap to try and make something happen.
Just waiting to see if he can get the run on David Washington. He backs the corner up going into the corner, seeing if he can get that run off the corner. Gets a really good run through the center, and now he's right on the back bumper of David Washington as they come off turn 4. Adam Benefiel takes the white flag. He's got 1 more lap, 2 more miles to go to get his 2nd win of the season here at Michigan.
Through turns 1 and 2 very cleanly, just like he did at Las Vegas when he won for the first time in 2017 in March. Still no change here with the 4 cars running 2nd through 5th, though. Looks like Eberhard tried to come off the wall a little bit. That might give Shedd the chance to go get him here on the outside as they go through 3. But tonight on the long green flag run, And the way to end this race and the way this race is shaped up, it's been all Adam Benefiel, who comes across the start-finish line with a little wiggle of celebration as he picks up his second victory of 2017. Benefiel wins tonight's Full Throttle Cup Series race at Michigan. Washington came home second. Eberhardt got third, Shed fourth. Dwayne Vincent was able to bring it home in the fifth position.
How about that run for Dwayne Vincent? Just able to really capitalize on gaining some track position and able to get his sixth top 5 finish of the season. And it comes at a really good time as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Just 3 more races to go until the playoffs start. And this is the time where if you're any of these teams, you need to start building that momentum and getting yourself prepared to have one heck of a championship battle, because it looks like we are going to have so many different contenders that could definitely be in the Final Four when we get to Homestead.
You have to start thinking about it now at this point, don't you? And boy, does this make Benefiel a dangerous man. It's the last thing anybody who's been running the full chunk of the season wanted to see, was another guy who has the speed to keep up with the leaders, the Washingtons and the Comstocks, the Eberhardts of the world. Tonight, they were all chasing Benefiel, and we will talk to the driver of the number 83 machine when we come back. We'll also give you the full field rundown and talk to our podium here at Michigan. But we'll take a short commercial break and get back to it on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
I actually, really enjoy dirt racing. Feels good to get in the car, and we have, great cars and engines and things at KKR, so it's nice to drive a fast sprint car.
Couple of separate lines developing, 3 wide action on a turn 2. Craig Kitzer, Casey Kane, and Garrett Pittman going at it.
I think the differences between, NASCAR and the sprint races on dirt is just a much different mindset. The way you drive your cars, the setup, the feel you're looking for. I think one of the hardest things to tell as a fan is when you're watching a race, whether it's a NASCAR race, a dirt race, is just what's really going on in the car. With iRacing, you can get the way that the track's changing, which they've done a great job in how the track changes throughout the night or throughout the race, just to try to capture it and let the fans play it and realize, like, man, there's actually a lot going on, and you can't always see that when you watch a race. So I think it's pretty neat. It's, enjoyable for me, but at the end of the day, it's actually much of a simulation, and there's a lot of ways that you can learn from that. And early on, it was neat to look at the Cup tracks that I was going to, places that I had never been. So I think it kind of gives you a head start leading into a weekend. It's pretty real life, and that's pretty neat.
Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series live tonight from Michigan, where Adam Benefiel has picked up his second victory of 2017 and comes home P1 as we get ready to take a look at your full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished this evening. Benefiel is able to get a victory tonight at Michigan, and we believe, we've been working the math hard here, we believe unofficially that he will be 30th in points, so right in the point cutoff to make it into the playoffs. But we believe at this point, if the regular season were to end right now, Benefiel would qualify. Of course, that can change over the next few weeks, but Benefiel is very, very close, if not there already, with the victory tonight and the way that some of the other drivers around the 30th position in points ran, namely Douglas Wyatt. David Washington finishes in the second position this evening. Daniel Everhart. He's not James Bond, even though I made it sound as such, but he did finish third with a pretty solid run tonight. Carl Shedd comes home in the fourth spot. Dwayne Vincent recovered nicely from the contact he made with David Washington to finish fifth. David Comstock came home in the sixth position. Trevor Roppolo finished in seventh. Shane Ewing, eighth for the 32 machine. Brandon Bowie was pole sitter and then got caught out on pit strategy. Never could quite get it back together. Finishes ninth. And then Corey Wolf will round out your top 10.
How about Corey Wolf catching that break when the caution came out while he was on pit road, and he was able to turn that into a top 10 run, so good run for him. Nelson Rivera will finish in the 11th position. Lionel Calisto, who was 11 points on the outside of the playoff cutoff coming into tonight, he finishes in the 12th position. Then we have Sean Boundy finishing 13th. Ross Cato, who was the guy that was holding that playoff cutoff spot, he finishes 14th here tonight. Scott Walter will finish 15th. Doug Roth will finish 16th. John Abbott comes home in 17th, and then Sean Casto finishes 18th as the last car to finish on the lead lap here tonight. Austin Coop will come home in 19th, just one lap down, and then Randy Yoakum rounds out your top 20. He finishes 2 laps down.
Joseph LaPlaca finished in the 21st position, 6 lap down. Andrew Farinars got caught up in trouble late and finishes 22nd. Dylan Jones hit the wall at 192 miles an hour down the front straightaway to finish in 23rd, a few laps down. Dylan with a tough night tonight, as it was for Braden Whitaker, who brought the 04 home in 24th. Colson Bermudez wrecked midway through this race, finishes 25th. The other man who I suppose is really hurt by Benefiel's victory, at least in terms of the top 30 in points pit that Benefiel was rooting against tonight, was Christopher Herlow, who ran into trouble early on and finishes 26th. Anthony DeBarro wrecked early. Not a good night for his playoff hopes. He may well just have to outright win one of these last 3 races to get in. Finishes 27th. Nick Silver came home 28th tonight, also in trouble. Mitch Rollo finishes 29th. Tanner Talarico 30th, and Douglas Wyatt, the other man Benefiel was really rooting against, was the first car out of this race on lap 10. He finishes in 31st. So there is your 31 car field rundown for tonight's race at Michigan. And at this point, we turn to the man who really made it happen, especially in that final green flag run. Your winner here in Victory Lane at Michigan, just along the pit wall, Adam Benefiel is victorious tonight. And we will talk now to the driver, the number 83. And Adam, I think we talked long runs during the broadcast a lot because your car really seemed to come alive during them, but it looked like you struggled a little bit on restarts just as the tire temperatures and pressures built up. Can you talk about the way your car was set up and whether or not we kind of hit it right on the head that you needed the long green flag run in order to really be successful and show the maximum amount of speed in this 83 tonight?
Yeah, I mean, that's long run's always been my thing. I just can't push myself to fire off like everybody else does, or some of these guys up front do. I did it one restart. I was just like, let's just see if I can actually keep up with them in case this end of this race comes down to a, last, little shootout or something. And I actually cleared David going into 3, or going into one, I'm sorry, and then I was actually under Daniel coming out of one, and then the caution, or out of two, and the caution came out. So I kind of felt like I could have hung there. I kind of chose not to, just to feel the race, and it seemed like everybody was kind of calm tonight. So I wanted to just make sure I had something for the end, and it showed. Like, man, we had some unbelievable long run speed. I was not expecting to be that much faster on the long run, but we'll take it.
And coming out of this, we happen to have a visit from our old statistician and friend, Jacob Seelman, who we believe has you scored in 30th in points after tonight, the way things stand. So to already be in the top 30, I imagine it has to be a bit of a relief, but surely you're not done pushing for a little bit more there to really give yourself some buffer room here in these final few races leading up to the playoffs. You want more.
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty cool. Appreciate that, Jacob. This name I ain't heard or talked to in a while, so I hope everything's good with him. But we're gonna keep digging. We're just gonna wing it. We got in there, now we just got to stay. Bristol. I don't really like that place for some reason. So we'll just get by there, and then we go to Richmond, and I feel like we'll be sporty there, but we'll just wait and see. I mean, back when I ran this, regularly, was it last year before, man? There's different people now, and that's like I was sitting down there talking to the guys in the green room. It's like everybody in the top 10 was on the same team, and they're fast as hell. And it was for a minute. It was just me and Dwayne versus that whole team. But they're fast, and they work together. That's for sure. They would poke out, and whoever was passing or whoever was on the outside, the other one would try to pitch them some draft or something, and they would work together on restarts, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's team racing for you on there. You just you got to play the cards that you're dealt when you're like me, single man racing against big teams like this. But they're gonna be tough. I mean, they're a fast group of guys, and they seem to work pretty good together. So we'll just have to see how it works out.
And we talked a little bit about your strategy throughout the course of this season on the broadcast, how you chose to kind of selectively run the regular season here so that you could spend more time with the wife and the kids and the family, but also make sure that you would still be in a position come fall to really make things happen. So you've seen this series about as much as anybody has, and even in the two different, I suppose, racing styles and strategies in the regular season, back when you ran the full schedule and now with the sort of partial schedule. You talked a little bit about the differences from then to now with all the drivers at Aegis working together really well. What else have you seen that's changed since you were running full time that now that you're coming back to is a lot different here in the Full Throttle Cup Series?
Yeah, it's a lot different. I know that the team went under new ownership, and I feel like it's a lot more hands on deck, which I feel like is making it, the races and the organization and everything a lot smoother. I'm not going to take anything away from Mr. Abbott. He's a good friend of mine. He's from the same town that I live in. My father and him were good friends, so I think he did, a great job for the crew that he had. But the guys that are taking over it now, they're just they're coming in, and it's a fresh set of eyes, and they're able to open up a lot of things and got a lot of great ideas. And I think that RSR, I think it's going to be something huge one day. I really do. I think it'll be one of the biggest leagues on the service, and one of those ones that's going to have a massive waiting list just to get in to run this league. LSRTV's got such the platform to make something massive. it's gonna be interesting to see, and hopefully I'll be around to be a part of it. But competition stepped up. It's tougher. There's a lot faster guys, and you just gotta outsmart them now. So we'll see how the rest of this season goes. I'm excited.
And still have to finish up 2017 before we talk about the big plans for the Full Throttle Cup Series that are coming for 2018. But for now, let's go ahead and give you a chance to thank all your sponsors and your friends, your family, everybody that makes it happen for you in this 83 team.
Yeah, man. Roll Speed Dynamics, One Up Motorsports. Those are the two that's backed me so much, and they always got my back no matter what. My beautiful wife and my two kids, thank God they stayed asleep tonight. I would hate to have to pull over leading this race, but no, everybody that's out there that support me, like everybody was messaging me once the word got out of what I got to do to get into the chase. And it was guys that I know, and then there was some that I don't know that they want me to come back and they want me to make the chase and give a run for it. So I appreciate everybody that's messaged me and everybody that's wished me luck and has got my back. It's really cool. Didn't ever expect to have that kind of support from sim racing, and you guys for listening and letting me chat about all kinds of stuff and just listening to me.
Well, thank you for the time, Adam, to come on here and talk to us after your victory, and we will see you 1 week from tonight in Thunder Valley.
Sounds like a plan, man.
So there's Adam Benefield for you, winner tonight at Michigan, and from there we slide over to Brian Macklin, who has words with our runner-up, Mr. David Washington.
Yep, caught up with Dave Washington down here on pit road. Dave, you won the last two late summer races here at Michigan in 2015 and 2016. You came up just one position short of making it a 3 in a row. Take us through your night here tonight and how hard it was trying to chase down the number 83 machine.
Yeah, pretty much. I put zero practice in this week. Really.
And we are having some technical difficulties with Dave Washington right now. Going to see if we can get those sorted out here in just a moment. But a really impressive drive for the number 98 machine here tonight. He had to start out on the outside of the top 5. I think he started back in the 10th position, had a really solid run up through the field, took the track position and was able to challenge and battle with Adam Benefield. Just not able to come home with that victory. Does not look like we're going to be able to sort out those technical difficulties. So for the moment, we're going to step aside, and actually looks like we might have him. Dave, you with us again?
Yeah, I got you. Sorry.
That's right. Back to what you were saying, your battle with Benefield and your battle through the night.
Yeah, I pretty much, I didn't practice too much, so I just wanted to just run the car all out, see what it had. I thought we were going to get some long runs and, see what happened to the pit stops, but we didn't get a chance to see that. We got that last little run at the end, and I just ran it all out at the end and just went in and win.
Obviously, you had a really good run tonight. We have just 3 races left until the playoffs start. And, of course, you have 4 wins on the season. You look at the next 3 races that are coming up. You've got Bristol next week. Then we take a week off. Then we're going to go to Darlington. And then we have Richmond before we head off to the playoffs. Are these tracks that you're excited about, or are you just ready to get the playoffs kicked off?
Yeah, I'm just ready to get the playoffs kicked off. I'm pretty much – this season's been a learning curve. Just looking forward to next season. And, starting fresh, new build, all the good stuff that should hopefully come from it. And, just give it all we got when the chase starts and see where we end up.
And speaking about the playoffs, of course, we don't have the official word that Benefield has made the top 30 in points to have his 2 wins count towards the playoffs. But when you look at that number 83 car, assuming he does make the top 30 in points and gets into the playoffs, how much of a threat do you feel like he's going to be for the championship? He's been so consistent in the few races he has been in. You have to believe he's going to be a major challenge for you guys, all of you at Aegis, and of course everybody else that's in the playoffs to battle for that championship.
Yeah, most definitely. Anytime you see the number 83 show up, he definitely is the class of the field. He keeps us on our toes, keeps us working hard. Comstock, Dwayne, I mean, all these guys, they're a great group of guys. And you definitely can't take. We haven't seen Benefield the whole season, but it would have probably been a whole different story if he was around for the whole thing. But I'm definitely looking forward to racing him. We just have to, try to do what we can to, if we actually get some pit stops in, to actually try to outsmart him on pit stops and just try to use different strategies.
Well, and we look forward to seeing how that all plays out. But before we let you go, Dave, just want to give you a chance to say thank you to your sponsors and say hi to any friends or family who makes it happen for you on the number 98 machine.
Yeah, definitely Aegis, all the guys over there. Julio for putting me in this car each week. Mama for watching. You guys for broadcasting and the whole new organization that took over. Glad to have them. Should be good going forward from here. Looking forward to it.
All right, well, congrats on your runner-up finish here tonight, and good luck next week at Bristol.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was David Washington. He finishes second here tonight. A very solid run for the number 98 machine. And now, I believe, Mr. Pike, you have caught up with the third-place finisher, Mr. Daniel Eberhardt, down on pit road.
With the driver of the number 90 machine, Daniel Eberhardt, who comes away with the third-place finish tonight. And Daniel, I think... not too much crazy to be said about your night. It was just you up in the top 5 all night long, trading places. You were anywhere, it seemed like, from first to fourth just about the entire night. Had one of the best cars in the field and ended up coming home third tonight. So I guess a good points night, and especially after you ended up here on your roof in June, definitely better to come away with the top 5 and with a result that I think reflects a little bit more of the speed that you had even that night in this car.
Yeah, it's good momentum going into the chase. I felt like I had a top 2 car at the end. Dave was just a little bit quicker. I think he saved a little bit more tires right there than me, and we were all trying to chase down Adam. He had the best car, and we'll go on to the next week at Bristol. I'm just ready to start the chase, just get all this, season out the way. But really, I want to go to Darlington. Darlington's probably my favorite track on the sim other than plate racing. Should have won there last season, then came down to some controversy, so I'm just really stoked for Darlington.
And how big is this finish in the context of this season? You had a bit of a slow June and July after you got the victory in Dover, but now you're looking at your second straight top 5, your third top 10 in a row, and it looks like you're really starting to get this thing turned around at the right time to get yourself ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess. It's been up and down, but, I wouldn't have to deal with all this if I just, really just came in here and ran 5 races, I guess, and win a couple of them and get into the chase.
And how confident are you next week in going to Bristol? You were really, really quick there in the spring, and I know that's one of your favorite tracks on the sim too. So, want to go try and maybe go get the sweep on the season, perhaps, if you have everything fall to your cards and you race it the right way.
Yeah, I say that, but Bristol's a lot different, James. At night, it's a little bit. You can make the bottom work a little bit more. It's got a little bit more grip. But I like any track like Kansas and Darlington and Bristol where you have to run an odd line. It's not down on the bottom. It's not a single lane track. And I don't know. You got to stay optimistic. You never know how it goes as sim racing. You can have the best car and something just happen, internet and anything. A lot involves, instead of having fuel run out, you have internet problems or something like that. So you have to put that all into perspective. I hope my internet stays going, but we've been having a lot of storms down here lately, so you never know. And I'm just really disappointed with tonight, I guess. So it's just really bugging me. I should have finished up there better, but I didn't. I got third, and I'm gonna have to go home with that.
Go home with it and come back to Bristol next week and make it happen. But I know there are a lot of people behind you in that 90 car. So go ahead and send your thank yous and your shout outs to everyone that makes it possible for you, Daniel.
You guys, thank you guys for what y'all do each and every week. And congratulations to all you guys for getting to run a league now. I'm really happy and excited for the changes to come. And I know it will bring a lot more people in once you fill out everything and figure out what you're going to do and know that you guys can run this thing. I have a lot of faith in you guys, and So I'm actually saying thank you to RSR/LSRTV because this is y'all's league, and thank you to everybody at Aegis and PowerTech. It's a really fun racing with them guys, and I got to thank my beautiful girlfriend who stands up, cheers me on, and sits right beside me every race. It's pretty fun getting to show her the ins and outs of this and stuff. So thank everybody, and thank the good Lord above, and come back next week.
Well, thank you for coming on tonight, Daniel, and taking some time to talk to us, and we'll see you down in Bristol next Monday night.
Thanks, James.
So there's your top 3 finishers, Mr. Macklin, and all 3 of them reference this. So even though we weren't necessarily planning to talk about it, I figure they've almost kind of forced our hand. So we'll go ahead and at least remind you of the news that came out last week that we at LSRTV have acquired the RealSimRacing.com enterprise, and with that includes the Full Throttle Cup Series. So technically speaking, it is our league now, and we have rights to the leagues, we have rights to the records, we have rights to pretty much everything, all under our control now. So there will be more regarding the acquisition that will be announced in the coming weeks' time, but I think you and I can speak for everybody here at LSR-TV when we say we're all really excited to undertake this new enterprise and really jacked up to have a hand in the way that this league will go forward in the years to come.
And one important thing to note, if you're looking for information on RSR in the upcoming weeks, it will be on our website at LSRTV's website. So if you're looking for information about the league, you can go there, or you can still go to RealSimRacing.com to get information about signing up for some of the other series that are going on, or if you want to try to jump in on the later segment of this series here in the Full Throttle Cup Series, and certainly about moving into 2018 as well. It's going to be a very exciting season. Can't wait to see how it shapes up. I imagine it's going to be a really exciting year for all the drivers and for us up here in the booth. They're going to be getting the opportunity to call it all once again.
And I suppose one important note to make here before we sign off, you won't see any changes to the format here of the 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series. Everything will be run out in due course the same way it has been here up to Homestead, Miami. So the same great racing that you've seen on every Monday night, you're still going to see here, and it's going to be an incredible show here, especially as we get down here to the final few races in the playoffs, as we begin to wrap up tonight's coverage from Michigan and start turning our attention towards the world's fastest half mile, the last great Coliseum, racing the way it ought to be. I mean, we could bring out the taglines from forever, Brian, but Bristol is a special place in the schedule, and it is going to be a lot of fun to be there next Monday night.
Bristol is by far one of my favorite tracks to go to, not only to actually get on the track and run laps, but to be able to sit back and watch the excitement, beating and banging, short track racing at its best. And I was looking at some of the stats, looking back to when the Full Throttle Cup Series started back in 2012. We do not have a single person that has won more than once at Bristol. So this is an opportunity for just 4 drivers that are currently active in the series to become the first driver to win 2 races at Bristol. Those 4 drivers are Dwayne Vincent, David Comstock, David Washington, and Daniel Eberhardt. Of course, Daniel Eberhardt, he won the spring race here just earlier this season. He has an opportunity to try to sweep the season at Bristol and become the first 2-time winner at Bristol.
So we'll see if Eberhardt gets the right to bring out the broom next Monday night, but we have to wait until next Monday night to make that happen. At same time, same place here, 9:35 Eastern Daylight Time is when we will bring you coverage of the 23rd race of the season in 2017 for the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series here on LSR-TV, your home for sim racing. But we'll go ahead and wrap up our coverage for tonight for this broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking here on LSR-TV. So for my colleague up in the booth, Brian Macklin, for our always lovely and talented producer Cisco Scaramuza, for everybody at Real Sim Racing who has made this league happen over the years. I know we're going to try and do our best to keep what they've started. So a big tip of the cap to John Abbott and Doug Atkinson for everything that they've done over the years. And for Laura Lawson, DJ Lyon, and Evan Pasoko at LSRTV, our wonderful overlords and boss men who make things happen that we actually do love dearly. I am James Pike saying thank you for watching tonight's broadcast, and we will see you all next Monday night from Tennessee.